So the real challenge of writing a good battle scene is to try to capture both of those in the scene, to try to give the reader a sense of the tactics of the battle and what's happening on the larger battlefront, while still putting you in the eyes and ears of your protagonist and kind of putting your reader right in the middle of the action, which is...
George R. Martin said this in an interview about his approach to writing battle scenes. It sounds simple. Give readers both the strategic overview and the visceral experience. But what he's describing is actually one of the hardest challenges in fantasy writing. How do you show the grand tactics of warfare, the movement of armies, the strategic decisions, the turning points, while also putting the reader in the mud and blood alongside the soldiers? Most writers fail at this. They either give you dry tactical descriptions that read like history textbooks, or they give you chaotic, close combat that's exciting but meaningless because you have no idea what's happening beyond the immediate fight. Martin does both. And in explaining how, he reveals a philosophy about violence and fiction that goes far deeper than writing technique. Let's examine Martin's approach to battle scenes, his rejection of bloodless violence, his experience as a conscientious objector during Vietnam, and why he believes that if you're going to write about war, you have an obligation to show both its terrible glory and its horrifying cost. The two perspectives, general's eye versus private's eye.
Yeah, battle scenes are actually very hard to write. I've, of course, done quite a few of them in the Song of Ice and Fire books.
Martin starts by acknowledging the fundamental difficulty. Whether you're writing about medieval warfare with axes and swords or science fiction battles with missiles and high-tech weaponry, the core challenges remain the same. The challenge is to try to get both aspects of the battle, the general's eye and the private's eye. Martin identifies the fundamental challenge of battle writing as balancing two completely different viewpoints. The general's eye. The general's sitting back in the battle, and he's seeing the front, and he's seeing, okay, my left flank is getting pushed back, and I better send in my reserve there, and let me swing the cavalry around here, and here's some important high ground I better add here. So he's seeing all the tactical and strategic aspects of the battle, and he's playing it out like a chess game. This is the bird's eye view, the strategic perspective. Watching armies move across terrain like pieces on a board. Understanding flanking maneuvers, reserve deployments, terrain advantages. That's fascinating for someone who likes military history and the aspects of warfare that are covered by that, but it can tend to be dry. Martin notes this perspective is intellectually interesting, but not viscerally exciting. Your blood doesn't pump, your heart doesn't race. Reading about troop movements is fascinating for military history buffs, but won't get most readers on the edge of their seats. The private's eye. The private's eye view is much more visceral. It's, here I am standing on the battle, and oh my god, this big guy's coming at me with an axe. I better get my shield up. Oh my god, he hit me. Well, wait a minute, I stabbed him in the belly. Now his guts are falling out. It's much more visceral. It's much more exciting. This is the ground level view, the terrifying immediacy of combat, the sensory overload, the life or death decisions made in split seconds. But you don't have any sense of the bigger battle. This perspective gets your blood pumping. It puts you in the moment. You feel the fear, the adrenaline, the desperate struggle to survive. But you're so focused on this one soldier's fight that you don't know if your side is winning or losing. You don't understand the strategic situation. The challenge, combining both perspectives. Most battle scenes in fiction fail because they only give you one perspective or the other. Historical fiction often falls into the general's eye trap. You read detailed descriptions of how armies maneuvered, which units went where, what the terrain looked like. It's accurate and informative but emotionally distant. Action fiction often falls into the private's eye trap. You get exciting fight scenes with swords clashing and blood flying, but you have no idea what's actually happening in the battle. Is your side winning? What's the objective? Why does this fight matter? Martin's solution is to weave both perspectives together. Give readers strategic context, then zoom into visceral combat, then zoom back out to show how that combat affected the larger battle. Look at how he does this in the Battle of the Blackwater in A Clash of Kings. Strategic level. Tyrion sees Stannis' fleet approaching. He understands the wildfire plan. He knows the city's defenses are weak. This gives readers the tactical situation, personal level. Then we're with Tyrion on the walls. We feel his fear. We experience the chaos when the wildfire explodes. We're in the melee when he leads the sortie. We feel the blade that cuts his face. Strategic level. Then we pull back to see the Tyrell forces arriving. We understand this is the turning point. We see how individual fights connect to the larger victory. This constant shifting between perspectives gives readers both the intellectual understanding and the emotional experience. You know what's happening strategically, and you feel what it's like to be there. The POV solution. Using multiple characters, Martin's POV structure in A Song of Ice and Fire is perfectly designed for this dual perspective approach. Because he has multiple POV characters in any given battle, he can show different angles. The commander's perspective, Tyrion at Blackwater, Jon at Castle Black, Daenerys in her conquests. These characters understand strategy. They make tactical decisions. Through them, we get the general's eye view. The soldier's perspective, characters who are in the thick of fighting but don't control the battle. They give us the visceral, ground-level experience. The observer's perspective, characters like Sansa or Arya who witness battles but don't fight. They show us the chaos and horror from yet another angle, the civilians caught in war's path. This multiple POV approach lets Martin give readers the complete picture. Strategic decisions from commanders, visceral combat from fighters, human cost from observers. The frustration, how film and TV get it wrong. I've read a lot of military history. I've always been fascinated by that, and kind of frustrated by the way battles are often done in television and film in particular. Why the frustration? Because film and television tend to focus almost exclusively on the private's eye view, close-up shots of swords clashing, shaky cam chaos, individual duels. This is partly a practical limitation. It's expensive to show thousands of soldiers. It's hard to choreograph large-scale tactics. It's easier to film exciting close combat. But it means most battle scenes in film are just visual chaos, exciting to watch, but meaningless strategically. You have no idea what's actually happening in the battle, beyond people are fighting. Even Game of Thrones the show, which Martin helped create, sometimes falls into this trap. The Battle of the Bastards is visually stunning, but much of it is just Jon getting trampled and fighting desperately with no sense of the larger tactical situation. In the books, Martin can give you both. He can describe the tactical layout, then put you in Jon's head for visceral combat, then pull back to show how it all connects. Action versus violence, the crucial distinction. There is a lot of violence in the books, especially in A Song of Ice and Fire, but you treat it very seriously. It's never for fun. The interviewer notes this key aspect of Martin's work. And Martin's response reveals his entire philosophy. I worked in network television, for American network television for 10 years back in the 80s and 90s. Being a broadcast station, we were subject to network standards and practices. That is, censorship. This experience shaped Martin's philosophy. The networks tried to censor sex and violence. But they had a hypocritical distinction. They probably would have said, well, we don't want any violence in our show, but we do want lots of action. And action is what? To my mind, action is bloodless violence. This distinction is crucial. Action shows the spectacle without the consequences. Violence shows the cost. You see an action film. Here's an exciting car chase, and all the cars are slamming against each other, and they're flipping over and they're going into the ditch, and the flames are engulfing the cars that have crashed. You never actually see the twisted bodies. You never see the person who, when the car slammed into each other, their leg was severed, and they're bleeding to death in the front of that car. You never see the drivers inside the car that's just blown up screaming in agony as the flesh consumes them. Martin's position is radical. That's action. The network doesn't want to show you because it might disturb you. Well, sorry. I think you should be disturbed. He believes violence should disturb you. That's the point. If you're going to show war, show what war actually does to people. Don't sanitize it into exciting spectacle. I'm against action. You can do a straight character piece with no deaths in it, and that's fine. But if you're going to do something where people are dying, if you're going to do a war story especially, then show war the way it is. Either don't show war at all, or show it honestly. Those are the only ethical options in Martin's view. The duality, glory and horror. But Martin doesn't just show war as horror. He shows both sides. The way it is complicated because the truth is, we like war. Why is there this appetite for action? Because like Achilles, who had the choice between a short and glorious life or a long and boring one, he chose a short and glorious life, and he wanted to go out in a blaze of glory, and indeed he did. Martin acknowledges that war has appeal. There is glory in it. There is beauty in the pageantry. The ancients always talked about the glories of war, and you can still see some of that in the pageantry in the Middle Ages, which I reflect in Game of Thrones. The knights with their armor shining in the sun, the banners, in a world that was largely brown and mud-colored. Here were these incredible warriors, with their heraldry, with their eagles, and their lions, and their wolves, flying from the banners. It has a beauty to it, a frightening beauty. This is what makes Martin's war writing so powerful. He doesn't pretend war is only horror. He shows the seduction of it, the glory that makes young men want to fight. But when those armies clash, then you get the severed limbs, and you get the lakes of blood, and you get all of that. And I think if you're going to honestly treat with that material, show both sides. Show the glory, but also show the pain, and the grief, and the cost of the glory, the price of war. This is Martin's complete philosophy. War has glory, but that glory comes at a terrible cost. Show both. Don't sanitize the horror. But don't ignore the appeal either. Vietnam and conscientious objection. Martin's philosophy was forged in his own relationship with war. I'm not a pacifist, but I was a conscientious objector during the Vietnam War, because I thought that particular war was immoral and illegal. In fact, as most wars by America have been illegal over the last, pretty much my lifetime. This distinction is crucial. Martin isn't anti-war in all circumstances. He's not a pacifist who believes violence is never justified. I certainly don't claim that for myself. I never have taken a human life, but I think in the right circumstances I could. They always say, well, what would you do if Adolf Hitler was raping your grandmother? Yeah, I would kill Adolf Hitler if he was raping my grandmother. I might kill him just for being Adolf Hitler. He believes some wars are justified. Some causes are worth fighting for. Some evils must be opposed with force. But he also believes most wars are not justified, that governments lie about why they fight. This is the key insight that separates Martin from most fantasy writers. He rejects the simple morality of dark lords and forces of evil. Rejecting Sauron, the problem with pure evil. Martin loves Tolkien, but he explicitly rejects Tolkien's approach to moral clarity in warfare. The issue that many of us have to deal with as fantasy writers is it's all very easy to always write these books in which Sauron is always the villain, or Morgoth even worse. And you're fighting against the Dark Lord, or the Rotten One, or the Bad Guy, or Lord Malice, or whatever the hell you're going to call your big bad. In Tolkien, the morality is clear. Sauron is absolute evil. The Fellowship fights for absolute good. There's no moral ambiguity, but real wars aren't like that. Real enemies aren't Dark Lords. They're people with their own reasons, justifications, beliefs. But real life doesn't really offer us that. And I wanted to inject a certain level of realism into the kind of fiction I was writing. That realism means no easy villains, no pure evil to fight against. Just people with conflicting interests, complex motivations, and genuine belief in their own righteousness. How this shapes A Song of Ice and Fire. This philosophy is woven throughout Martin's work. No clear good guys versus bad guys. The Starks seem heroic, but Robb's campaign causes massive suffering. The Lannisters seem villainous, but they have their own code of honor and family loyalty. War has consequences. The War of the Five Kings doesn't just affect the nobles fighting it. Peasants starve. Villages burn. The common people suffer for lords' ambitions. Glory and horror coexist. Battles have moments of genuine heroism, but heroes die screaming in the mud. Bannermen fight bravely, but they're fighting for lords who don't care about them. Violence is never consequence-free. When characters kill, it changes them. When armies clash, The damage is permanent. There's no clean victory. The strategic and personal are always connected. Political decisions lead to individual deaths. Personal grudges shape military campaigns. The general's eye view and the private's eye view are two sides of the same horror. This is why Martin's battles feel real, despite being in a fantasy world. Because he's applying his Vietnam-era understanding of war's complexity to a medieval setting. The obligation. If you show war, show it honestly. Martin's philosophy boils down to a simple obligation. If you're going to write about war, you owe it to your readers to show war honestly. That means show both perspectives. The general's strategic view and the soldier's visceral experience. Don't give readers just one or the other. Show both glory and cost, the pageantry and heroism, and the severed limbs and lakes of blood. Don't sanitize war into exciting spectacle. Show moral complexity. Not dark lords and forces of good, but people with conflicting interests, who all believe they're right. Disturb your readers. Don't make violence comfortable. If readers aren't disturbed by your battle scenes, you're lying about what battle is. Connect individual deaths to larger meaning. Every corpse was a person. Every battle affects thousands of lives beyond those who fight. This isn't just technique, it's ethics. Martin believes writers have a responsibility when they depict violence. Either show it honestly or don't show it at all. The final truth. The real challenge of writing a good battle scene is to try to capture both of those. To try to give the reader a sense of the tactics of the battle and what's happening on a larger battlefront, while still putting you in the eyes and ears of your protagonist, and kind of putting your reader right in the middle of the action. This is George R.R. Martin's philosophy of battle writing in one sentence, but as he explains it, it becomes something far more profound than writing advice. It's a philosophy about honesty, about refusing to sanitize violence into entertainment, about showing war's terrible duality, its seductive glory, and its horrifying cost. Martin learned this during Vietnam. Watching his government lie about why they were fighting, watching network television turn war into bloodless action, grappling with the question of when violence is justified and when it's murder disguised as patriotism. He emerged with a conviction: if you're going to show war, show what war actually is. Not dark lords and forces of evil, not clean battles where heroes emerge unscathed, but messy, complicated, morally ambiguous conflicts where people die screaming and everyone believes they're right. Show the general planning his chess game. Show the soldier with an axe coming at his face. Show both, together, constantly shifting between strategic meaning and visceral horror. Show the shining armor and flying banners. Show the severed limbs and lakes of blood. Show the glory and the cost, because both are real, and pretending otherwise is a lie. This is why A Song of Ice and Fire's battles feel different from most fantasy. Why they're simultaneously exciting and disturbing. Why you can admire the tactics while being horrified by the consequences. Because Martin refuses the easy path. He won't give you sanitized action. He won't give you simple morality. He won't let you enjoy violence without confronting its cost.
Well, sorry, I think you should be disturbed.
That's Martin's challenge to writers and to readers. If you're going to engage with war in fiction, engage with it honestly. Show both perspectives, show both glory and horror, and don't look away from what violence actually does to human bodies and human souls, because war deserves that honesty. The people who fight deserve it. The people who suffer from it deserve it. And readers deserve fiction that treats violence with the seriousness it demands.